Well, good afternoon, Nashville and the rest of this world. It's great to be here with a dear friend of mine. We've worked together on my book, and I'm going to introduce her in just a second. But wanted to let everybody know about the book. It makes great opportunities for your Christmas purchasing, for Thanksgiving, for this holiday season. It's called Leaving Your Life Imprint. And what's great about it is this particular book, Sherry and I wrote together, and it's got some great stories, truly true to life stories. And I just think it would be a great book. If you're ever looking for a great Christmas gift, this is it. Leaving Your Life Imprint. It's about legacy, about leaving your life story. And so I was really privileged and honored to do this. I was able to give my kids this book a couple of years ago. And it's all about the story I didn't even know about. And many of you listening, you probably haven't told your story, or you haven't, done something like this to encourage you to do a story. And that's what it took me, as I kind of a catastrophic thought hit my mind, is I'd been to the attorney with my wife and I, and we had given all our land, all our stock, all whatever, whatever possessions we had. And I thought that was great until about 5 minutes later. And I said these famous words. I said, "Is that all there is?" And I realized over the next year and a half to 2 years writing this book and working with someone like Sherry, that everybody minimizes our story. I didn't want to minimize my story. I just didn't even know it. And so that was the cool part, was that I found out there was more than just giving land and monetary things to my kids. And so that's what this is coming from. And so don't forget, go to kennymauck.org. That's a good place to get your book. And you can, I would stay away from Amazon. We do it on Amazon, but if you really want a signed book and make it personal, I'll sign the book, or for your relative or your friend, just let us know on the website. Okay. And these podcasts are on YouTube. You can pick them up and share with your friends. And anyways, this book and the cup, don't forget the cup. If you're a hiker, like many of my friends, they like the hiking cup. And so, a $10, gift gets you the book. And if you go with 15, we'll pay for the postage for the cup and the book. So anyways, there's my beginning, but remember that as we're talking. So without further ado, Miss Sherry Price is a dear beloved writer who a lot of people like myself who want to write but haven't written before. She's a good person to contact, because she's the kind of person that can help you share your thoughts and your feelings and not get all caught up in a lot of words that don't really capture your story. And that can happen to somebody who's, like myself, who's I've been a writer, but not a book author. And so she taught me a lot. So welcome, Sherry. We're glad you're here. Thank you for agreeing to come be with us today. And I'm looking forward to just you sharing as well with myself, kind of back and forth a little bit about the importance of story. And today it's a great day, because it's 1 Thessalonians 5:7 says, "In every situation, no matter what the circumstances, be thankful and continually give thanks to God, for this is the will of God for you in Christ Jesus." And I think Sherry can vouch with this, and I'll let her share. But we don't really grow, Sherry, in whether it's weather or with our personal lives or whatever. Nothing can really grow unless it has that other challenge in life. And situations come into our life, and they challenge us, and we grow from them, and we're thankful eventually from going through it. So welcome to the Kenny Mauck podcast.
Thank you, Kenny, for having me. I was so excited when you asked, because your book was it was so good to work on. I learned a lot. It's always good when I said, "Oh my goodness, I've learned a lot from working on the book." But listening to your intro and seeing your coffee cup, which by the way, I want a coffee cup. I want one of those. But anyhow, I think, wow, you're all about life. You have your Life Care Foundation, you have Leaving Your Life Imprint. You're just about living, you're just about life. And you're so calm about it all. That's what gets me. It's like, everybody else can be excited. And there's Kenny, calm, cool, and collected.
Well, I try and be. So Sherry, this particular book meant a lot to me because I didn't know my six-time forefathers, great grandfather, and he was from Germany, and that was an amazing story to me. I had no idea. I started writing and started thinking. Well, before I started writing, I started crying and weeping and laughing and
Yeah,
all these things because
yeah,
I was learning about my story. And when my wife and I went to Italy, we were listening to stories that were like 1,000 years old. In America, we're not that old. In
yeah.
comparison to other countries. So our story kind of still resides in Europe and these other countries that we came from. And so for me, that was a really important part. And you really helped me think through about the importance of not just our current story, but these other people in our life that made such impressions on my life and on our other lives that are listening. How do we go about capsulizing that story? Because you did a great job of helping me. But what would you tell other people when they're thinking about creating their own legacy story and they don't know much about it? What would you encourage them to do?
Well, I think you went about it in a wonderful way. I mean, how long did you research it for? Like 2 years? I mean, you dug, you did, the DNA test, you did research, you went to the library, you had pictures, and you really wanted to get the facts accurate. And then after that, you had the literary license where you kind of create the story, but you actually had the foundation of your family. And you went back to 1735, right? I think it was like
Yeah, 17
way back.
1733 and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you went way back, and even for myself, I can go back to my parents, my grandparents, and my great grandparents, and even my great grandparents. A little bit sketchy on, but at one point, I really want to, because the legacy part, and I work with a lot of authors, and they have their reasons of writing a book, but ultimately they do want to leave that legacy, and so they should. and
Hmm.
and so they should. I was just talking to someone yesterday who wants to work on a book, and he just kept talking about, oh, it's so important to tell your story. It's so important to tell your story. And I'm like, well, coincidentally, and I told him all about you, and I'm like, he's all over the story,
Hmm.
telling your story, because other authors will come to me and they'll be young or whatever, and they'll be like, yeah, my story's not as big or it's not as interesting as, I haven't lived a long time to get a story. And I'll say, you kidding? You're like 25 years old. You're rocking it in your industry. You have a story. And people want to sit back and say, how are you doing this? So
Hmm.
there's always a uniqueness in everyone's story, just like there's a uniqueness in our fingerprints and our DNA. So don't ever mitigate that. Like, there is something unique that you may not think's important, but the reader, the listener will be like, I did that. I went through that. Oh my gosh. Or I would have done that. Thank you for telling me. Or,
Hmm.
it could be healing. Like, I'm not the only one who's ever been through that. Wow. Sometimes when you go through stuff, you think you're the only one.
Hmm.
And you come to find out you're not. So your story, regardless of your age, is going to resonate with someone.
Well, Sherry, you did help me think through this, and I went to Germany and I saw where my six-time great grandfather lived, and I was out on the pier realizing that this 25-year-old young man was going to go on a ship. He must have had the only golden ticket from his parents because they couldn't go, and he said goodbye to everything he ever knew. Got on this ship, got on the Rhine River, and rowed down to get on this ship called the yeah. It's Samuel, and this British ship got him all the way back over here to America, and I just I had no idea. I had no idea that this 25-year-old young man, he came, and one of the worst trips. This I found out in the logs of the ship, the Samuel, that uh, this captain basically said this is one of the worst trips he'd ever had, and so people died, babies were born, and I'm thinking, it takes us, a 10-hour flight to get to England, but traveling it could be 3 months
I know.
out at sea trying to figure out where America is, and they land in Philadelphia somehow, and it just was amazing part of my life to realize that I could one day on Christmas, which I've done usually most every Christmas, is start to tell the story to my grandkids.
Yeah.
And they could be at the back of the room, and by the time I'm done, they're like right here on my seat, because that story of him coming to America, had he not made it, I told my grandkids I wouldn't be here sharing this story with you, and their big eyes got huge, and I said, and he likely could have, not made it, but he did, and I said, but that's how my story begins, at least from here in America. And so that's what I want to encourage people to do. And you helped me and a few others just to kind of think through about the interaction of a book. Like we had questions at the end of each chapter,
Yes.
because I wanted it to not just be somebody who could learn about my story, but more importantly, to encourage them how they could kind of capture their own story in their chapters, and how that all works. And so I thank you for all your help and suggestions, ideas that kind of helped the reader kind of, and now I was recently got a chance at the American Association of Christian Counselors, got to meet some amazing people with amazing stories, but they just like myself, I want to do this, and I said, now you got to take the next step. Now you need this book, because it can actually help you uh, chart your own story, and that's the biggest part, is taking time. And I would take, for me, it was 2 years of, maybe it was once or twice a week, but I would study, as long as I could, until it was time to go back, to bed, because I was running the company while I was doing it. But anyway, so this is exciting for me that we're on Thanksgiving, and I just want to encourage people to, this Thanksgiving, maybe share a story about, at the Thanksgiving table,
That's
right?
a great
About,
idea. Yeah.
about your own family, and spark the interest there. And then, as my family's grown, they want to know more chapters and more of the book, and I never get tired of it. And then obviously it's new to them, so it's a special gift, a golden nugget, maybe call it that, but it's something that would change your life. This whole story that started with Samuel, the boat, the boat Samuel, and coming across to
Yeah.
Germany.
Yeah.
So, tell us, how do you help people, that not just about their story, but that have a thought, or want to share something important to their life? What's the first thing that you want people to do? Because it's not just writing books, right? I mean,
That's
not
right.
everybody has to write a book, but how do you start to capture your story, or capture what you want to other people to know in your about your life? What do you feel like kind of gets them to thinking about how they can do it, besides maybe just writing? Is there other ways that you compile before you even start a story? What do you ask readers or writers, young writers that come to you that say, I really want to do this, but I really don't know where to begin?
Yeah. I think it's always good to know what your motivation is, because motivation motivates you. What is the reason? Is it that um, you want to leave a legacy? Is it that, oh my gosh, I have a powerful story that I know people are going to be inspired from? Is it to teach something? You have a passion or a skill. Is it sometimes people write a book because they want to make money? Is it to the book was really good. I tell people it's the most powerful business card. If you're doing a business book, if you want to get out awareness about your skills, your experience, your know-how, write a book, put it on your website, put it out there on social media. That establishes an immediate authority with you. Makes you the go-to expert. So what is that purpose that drives you? Because from writing a book, there are going to be times when you're like, why am I doing this? And you've got to remember, and I'll tell people, put it on Post-it notes, stick it around, let's say you're going on a cruise and you've got to fit to that swimsuit. And you're like, oh, I got to lose a few more pounds. So you start sticking pictures of the cruise ship and the swimsuit, around. So that's your motivator. So give them a motivation. And then what I tell them, it's like, what happens when someone writes a story is they can kind of deviate and go on rabbit trails. I hear that all the time. Let them know that their story has meaning, and let's just sit down and let's go through and create that path, so we can stay on target.
Those are great points. I think when I think of some of the great historians here in America, they didn't necessarily write a book, but they would write a diary, right?
They did.
And people would take that diary apart and really make it part of their humongous story as a president, or somebody who's a great artist, or whatever. Is people should somehow document. Maybe people can't write as well. Maybe they could use a recorder, right? And just record.
They can. And I would tell you that Zoom, there's certain programs with Zoom, that certain subscriptions, that if you get on there and record verbally, audibly, it will transcribe it. So that's a way. Also, journaling. That's how I wrote my first book. I had journals and I had notes, and it was about the foster care system, and I had journaled every day because I was told journal everything. I had notes and everything, and I just laid it out by date, and I just had it piled there, and I just told the story with those dates in mind. And I told the story behind that journal note or that email or that case hearing or something like that. And that's how I got through it. And that kept me on track. So, a lot of people don't have that, but journaling is great. If you think of things like, say you're eating dinner or lunch, or you get there, drink a cup of coffee, and you're like, oh man, I wanted to put this in the story. Jot it down and create a file. Put all these little notes in,
Yeah.
Post-it envelopes, whatever, put it in a file so that you can recapture it. Or a lot of people type things in their phone. I'm not that kind of person, just to let you know, my fingers are a little bit too fat for that. But, do whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable with, and just start writing them. Those stories. You had told me about a young man who really pushed his dad to do that, right? And then he died soon afterwards, the dad. That was, oh my gosh, you know how many people I've told that story to? Probably not as accurately as you did. But to me, wow, what a powerful story.
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea of thankfulness, here we are at Thanksgiving, and, you're going to be with your family. I'm going to be with mine. One of the things that I want to share this year with my family is the sacrifices that were made. I wouldn't be here for the sacrifice. I mean, my family came from a bunch of farmers, and they're hardworking people, but they had a really rough time just making it.
Yeah.
And I know you have a similar understanding of that, where you come from people that work hard, but they've lived really hard lives.
Yeah.
And I'm the benefactor of, some of that. Now that I look back and realize, just like my 6-time great grandfather took a risk, I took risk in starting a business that, had it not made it, I might be farming somewhere. But it's you just never know. You never know in life what golden nuggets, like I said at the beginning of this, why God uses those stories. It's through the Bible. I mean, too, people lived rough, tough lives, and yet God was there through it all. and he wants us to be thankful of our forefathers and our friends and those who've made our life rich.
Yeah.
So I'll let you finish with a parting thought, and then I want to do another segment here if we can, and but I wanted to hear one last thought that you might have for people this Thanksgiving as they're thinking about why it's important from your perspective and the people that you work. I know why it is with my family now. I did it. Obviously, it's helping other people, but I didn't do it. That wasn't my initial purpose. So I'll let you share your last thoughts here, and then we'll get to part two hopefully today. But share some parting thoughts with us about the importance of Thanksgiving, the importance of our story and legacy.
Well, I think on Thanksgiving, I think when we learn to be thankful, even in the midst of the storm, in the midst of chaos, that thankfulness, that thankful attitude takes our mind off of what we're going through, the hardships, misery, the sadness, or whatever it is. Like, you have to find, without sounding cliche, whatever, you have to find the positive. Somewhere there's positive, right? It, it,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be like, oh, I have a horrible haircut. Well, people may say, well, hey, you know, somebody may be going through chemo. They've lost their hair and they're thinking, well, at least you have hair, So, and it's like that one story. I used to complain about having no shoes until I met the man who had no feet. So, those kind of things, like, however, whatever's going on, somehow we can find positive. And you can pretty well bet that how bad you think you have, there's somebody who has it worse. There is. And so be thankful that, you have what you have. May not be in your perfect life, in your perfect mind, but be thankful. And that takes your mind off of those negative stuff. The story part, my gosh, your family, my kids, they're grown, but they ask me all the time, or they'll say, oh, I have a ton. I'm going to say ton, like maybe it doesn't weigh a ton, but it's a bunch of boxes of pictures in my garage. And they love going through them. They want to see the past. They want to see where they came from. They want to see my family and the family, before that. And they want to know their heritage, and understandably so, just like you did. So, you telling your story and you getting it out there, you're doing your family a favor. You're cutting through some of that work because you know that part. That's a part they don't have to go research and find out and hope they don't get wrong.
Sherry, it's been great to have you for this first session, and
It's been good to be
you've been an
here.
inspiration to my life and so many other writers. That their stories would not be told with somebody like yourself. Because,
Oh,
like I
thank
said, it's great to have an idea, but if you can't share that idea
That's
where
right.
people can get a sense of, well, how does this impact my life, and what are you trying to say? And you do a great job of that. And I thank
Thank
you
you.
from the bottom of my heart for helping me on this great opportunity to share my history with my family, my kids, and my friends, and now other people that are. It's inspiring people, and I thank you for not giving up on me and for helping me through the
Never.
process. All right. Well, thanks again. We'll stop there, but happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope you enjoy your Thanksgiving with you and your family, and God bless you all.
God bless you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching the show. If you guys have any questions, or if you would like to donate and receive the book, please head on over to kennymuck.org/show. Here you can ask us any questions that you might have, as well as make a donation. Thank you so much for watching.